Good morning. Brian and I are very pleased to return to Council after many months. The results are in. We have the second report available to us this past a little while, and that report has drilled down to some very interesting information for the well-being of Oxford residents. And so today we thought we would bring you up to speed in terms of where we've been, where we are, and what the next steps will be. Just to set the context, we recognize when you developed the community sustainability plan in the areas of economy, environment, and community, you realized that you needed to inform that plan, establish a baseline to feed into future ideas, future planning, and as well measurement. So to do that, we engaged the University of Waterloo, have worked with Mr. Brian Smale and his team. And we established a steering committee as well of some very talented folks from across Oxford County representing any number of sectors, whether it be education, culture, leisure. And we began our task. Learning as we were doing, which always takes place with this type of venture that had not been done before, particularly in this county.
Thanks, Randy. It's a pleasure to be here, and I just would like to point out, what a pleasure it is working with the leadership team and the partnership here. Forward-looking, future Oxford plan and the sustainability plan really gave us a context to contribute something I think that will be very helpful to the county. You've seen the results of report number 1 that gave us a nice baseline on a variety of issues related to well-being within the county. And that led us, of course, to the second report, which is just being released to you today. And the way we came to this, because there was so much information in the first report, the leadership team came together and we had sort of a facilitated workshop where we identified, who within the county did we really want to focus our attention on to get a greater understanding about, those people that may be falling behind in their well-being and may require greater attention as we move forward with, planning for well-being as well as the sustainability plan. So the leadership group identified income, age, the nature of the kinds of households that people are living in, where they lived in the county, rural versus the more near urban type areas, as the context within which to really dig down a little bit deeper in the data. And based on that workshop as well, we identified 5 themes. And so this came out of the conversations for local leaders that Randy mentioned, who are part of the leadership team representing all sectors, and saying what are sort of some of the core issues we'd like to really focus upon and see whether or not certain groups within the county were either falling behind in their well-being or didn't have the kind of access that we might have expected. So as you can see, the major themes are community engagement, accessibility, quality of work, the nature of work that people had and how precarious it may be, people's health behaviors and their perceptions, and also their environmental concerns. And as you can see from this, looks like a little pipeline here, we can see that many of the questions that were being raised and groups were being examined linked in very nicely with a lot of the goals and targets in the sustainability plan. So it serves a couple of purposes there. So what Randy's going to do now is just highlight some of the things that came out of that second report that you may find of particular interest.
Thanks, Brian. And again, just to put things in context, the online survey that went to approximately 11,500 households in Oxford County touched on elements and a host of questions around areas such as vitality of the community, healthy population, democratic engagement, the environment, leisure and culture, education, living standards, time use, how do I best use my time, and overall well-being. So having said that, some of the salient features of the second report are the following. Satisfaction with life and feelings of purpose and meaning are both strongly related to household income. Well-being is at its lowest level during middle age. Fewer people living alone report being satisfied with their life or that life is worthwhile. And a large percentage of people living in rural Oxford are satisfied with life compared to small urban locations. Surprised? Not surprised? At least we have the baseline, though. If it validates some of your thinking, we have that baseline now. And some comments. We have an appendum of amazing comments provided by the residents of Oxford County that really qualitatively supplement some of the stats. People in the lowest income category reported a poorer quality of life on almost every characteristic surveyed. There were many indicators for which well-being increased in direct relation to a higher income, and certainly it appeared that being at or below the $40,000 mark made a substantial difference to the quality of life of Oxford residents. And again, the quotes, when you're trying on your own to make a life better, it's so very hard when you're worried all the time about how to feed and clothe your children, get them things they need, and try to keep a roof over your head. Residents less than 35 years old reported better physical health, higher levels of financial hardship and job security, and less likely to have a flexible work schedule. The 35 to 64 group, lower self-assessed mental health and higher levels of work-life conflict. As well, they volunteered and provide unpaid help to others more often than any other age group. 65 years of age or older, more likely to report lower levels of physical health and less likely to experience financial hardship. People living alone, lower levels of well-being, life satisfaction, job satisfaction, formal volunteering, participation in organizations and close friends. Those living with another adult, however, had the highest level of overall well-being, regularly exercising, eating healthy food, experiencing less financial hardship, and agreeing that their employment income reflected indeed their education and training and background. People with children, higher levels of work-life conflict. What do you think about that one? Longer commute times report lower levels of sedentary activity. They're just chasing after those kids, and more proactive in conserving energy. With some notations, mental and emotional health care services are not adequately offered in our community. So there's a wealth of information in the second report, and as it concerns residency and geography, community engagement, accessibility, quality of work, health behaviors, perceptions, and community comparisons. There's 5 tables, and for those interested in coloring graphs, 140 graphs just for your reading pleasure, but it is very, very detailed. Brian, I think the overall report is around 140 pages, I believe. Okay. So we've just touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of the information that we have at hand, the baseline that we have at hand, how to use the information. And that's really our next steps now. Engaging the public and stakeholders in terms of awareness, understanding, access to the information. There will be a press release today regarding this, and then the second report will be made available. But more than that, through Brian's team at the University of Waterloo, anyone will be able to, vis-a-vis a written letter to the university, to access the data set, so the raw data itself, so that you can manipulate it and work through the raw data. Using the information and acting on the information. I sit on the Future Oxford Partnership, so it is now our distinct responsibility to ensure that we move this plan forward and integrate the results with the community sustainability plan itself, being the steward of that and making sure that happens and comes alive, and to mine the survey for targets that we can set that can be achievable, knowing that that plan sets out where we want to be in the future. So right now we'll take it on a road show, marked February 22nd, Wednesday morning. Ingersoll Fusion Center will be our official launch to multi-sectors, private sector, industry, government, social service, healthcare. Together we'll start to with Brian's help, Brian, we can't cut the apron strings yet, okay? So with Brian's help to help us sort through the information, and then together collaborate, reflect on it, and move forward. And certainly, again, how to use that information in our own planning with our own agencies, as well as together. You'll find the Community Wellbeing Survey on the Future Oxford site. And thank you so very much. It's again a pleasure being here to update you on where we are and where we're headed. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Randy. Any questions from council? Questions or comments? Councillor Mona, please.
Yeah, just confirming the second last slide is not part of our document, which may have answered my ability to answer a couple of questions. One is that correlation of the CIW with the CSP, and maybe you just referenced it, that the raw data is available if asked for, but is it available now? Is it available for council as part of supplementary material to back up some of the recommendations and comments in this report?
We house all the raw data from the survey at the University of Waterloo in a secure site. We have an obligation with the Tri-Council ethics guidelines to protect anonymity of residents and so forth. So basically, anybody who wants to use it simply applies to use it for the good purposes that the partnership intended.
Okay, and maybe I'll clarify for my benefit, the question then would be, is the material request, in essence, a survey, questionnaire, the derivative of where this material summary came from, is that available for perusal?
Yes, yeah, it just have to be requested. I think it's in the hands of future Oxford, but...
Peter, you wanted to comment?
If I could, report number 2, which is the analysis, and report number 1 are both public documents available. We'll send you the links directly so that you know.
And that may have been answered by the slide that's in here, but not in here, so I apologize for that.
Just to address the confusion, what Brian's referring to is further analysis of the raw data. It is a totally different issue as far as moving forward and how that gets done and can be done. We just want to protect the data source. But the 2 analysis reports that have been done to date are public documents, and we hope, quite frankly, that a broad number of stakeholders in the community will use that information and use it as part of their work.
Oh, that's excellent. I appreciate that, because that clarifies. It's one thing to have summary comments and understand where you can go from there, but a large part of understanding the summary comments are an understanding of where those comments were derived from, and then, parsing and auditing that connection to ensure that, that continuum is appropriate. The only other thing I had is that it was on one of the earlier slides. There was a connection to the 3 primary pillars on the right-hand side. I think the CIW is on the left. And there was reference to Economy Oxford. How were you able to correlate summary comments or direction, understand the aspect of the environmental and community? I'm just looking for where you were able to derive the connection to Economy Oxford at this date and time.
Basically, we took the Oxford, the sustainability plan and the goals and targets that it had set. In the survey itself, there's a number of questions about not just people's income and nature of their employment, but questions about work-life conflict, commute times, the nature of the work in terms of whether people had regular working hours or flexible work hours. So basically, people's work-life circumstances and the answers that they gave tied very directly to some of the targets and goals set in the sustainability plan. And so that diagram you saw with the linkages basically was pointing out there are questions, and in the reports that Peter mentioned, publicly available, draws connections between the analyses and the specific goals within the sustainability plan. So that full report will direct you to those linkages.
Any other questions or comments on this presentation? Go ahead, Randy.
If I could conclude with the fact that one thing I bypassed is that the second report compares Oxford to several other communities who have undergone the same survey. So in other words, Kingston, Waterloo region, Guelph, and Oxford ourselves. So it's a very interesting comparison as we look, because we look at the information and we would say compared to what? For example, there's little difference in the proportion of residents who felt a strong sense of belonging. Kingston was the highest, but all other communities we ranked fairly equally. Environmental protection, 9 of 10 residents in each of the 4 communities agreed that they have a personal responsibility to protect the environment. Job security, Oxford County had the lowest percentage of people who agreed that their job security was poor in comparison to. Okay, so it's very, very useful that way. Thank you again.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks very much, gentlemen.